Julian Sterling bolted from our wedding. Left me at the altar to chase after the ex who'd disappeared on him 5 years ago, back when he nearly lost the use of his legs. The guests broke into murmurs and gasps. I grabbed his lapel, swallowing every instinct to scream. "Julian, please. Not right now." Something flickered behind his eyes. Guilt, maybe, before he peeled my fingers off one by one and shook his head. "I'm sorry. I have to. I need to hear it from her. Why she threw me away like that." He didn't look back. Not once. The murmurs and gasps swallowed me whole, and he just kept walking. My father went rigid, shaking with a fury his heart couldn't handle. His knees buckled before I could reach him. He hit the floor. "Dad." I broke. But I couldn't fall apart yet, so I rode with him in the ambulance to the hospital. I was slumped against the wall outside the ER when my phone buzzed. 2 messages. The first was from Audrey Miller. "Told you." The second he knew I was back, he'd come running. "You lose." Again. The second was from Julian. "Give me a month. We take a break, just temporarily, and after that, I'm yours. Completely. I promise." Something inside me went dark and still, like water with no current. I almost laughed. Not this time. This time, I wasn't going to be the one who lost. Welcome to Bibliophile Princess channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Story begins. I sat in the surgical waiting room for hours. No updates. No one came out. My dad had had bypass surgery 2 years ago. After he recovered, he'd sat me down and told me, point blank, that Julian wasn't the one. I didn't listen. I was so sure Julian loved me that I was willing to gamble my father's blessing on it. Now that certainty sat in my chest like shrapnel, and every breath drove it deeper. Mom was beside me, crying. What if he doesn't pull through? He will. I cut her off before she could finish, because if she said the rest of that sentence out loud, I believe it. Dad's going to be fine. My voice cracked on the last word. I had never been this scared in my life. My phone buzzed again. Audrey. This time she'd sent a video. A hotel room. Julian burst through the door, still in his wedding suit, rumpled and wild-eyed. "Why did you come back?" Audrey said nothing. He broke first, his eyes reddening, his jaw working, everything he'd buried for 5 years clawing its way to the surface. "You vanished. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. And now you just show up and blow my whole life apart? How could you be that selfish, Audrey?" I stepped into the empty hallway where no one could see me. I watched the man on my screen unravel, and I didn't recognize him. My best friend had told me more than once that Julian was too guarded with me. Too controlled. I always had an answer for that. That's just how guys like him are. They don't do emotions. It's not personal. Except now I was watching Julian do every single thing I'd told myself he couldn't. Shaking. Breaking. Begging. Just never for me. I closed my eyes. The ache in my chest was a living thing, but I swallowed it down and kept watching. Audrey never answered him. She just stood there, watching him with those quiet, steady eyes. And just like that, his anger collapsed. The accusations, the bitterness, all of it crumbled, and he pulled her into his arms like she was the only solid thing left in his world. "You're back. That's all that matters." Audrey settled against his chest. Her gaze drifted straight into the lens, slow, deliberate, and the corner of her mouth lifted. She knew I was watching. The video cut to black. I laughed, a short, hollow sound that tasted like salt. Thunder cracked outside. The sky split open, and so did I. So that was what Julian looked like when he was in love. 5 years together, and I'd never once seen it. I wiped my face and walked back to the waiting room just as the doors swung open. I rushed forward, eyes so swollen I could barely see. "Doctor, is my dad okay?" "He's stable. Out of danger. But this cannot happen again. His heart won't survive another episode like this." Every muscle in my body locked tight. I nodded. "It won't. I'll make sure of it. Thank you." Mom finally broke, sobs of pure relief shaking through her. They wheeled Dad out a moment later. I looked at him on that gurney. Pale, hollowed out, fragile in a way I'd never let myself see, and I wanted to tear my own skin off for being so blind. We got him settled into a room. Minutes later, a knock. "Miss Hayes?" "I'm the private physician Mr. Sterling sent over to monitor his blood pressure." "How is the patient?" Julian's text arrived at the same time. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize it had hit your dad that hard. I sent a specialist to check his blood pressure. He's going to be fine." My hands were shaking so hard the phone nearly slipped from my grip. I stared at the screen, and something inside me went completely cold. 5 years together. And he thought my father had high blood pressure. It was a heart condition. It had always been a heart condition. I steadied my voice until it was flat as glass. "That won't be necessary. Please go." I got Dad settled, then took the elevator down to the maternity ward. Through the crack of a half-open door, I saw them. Julian had Audrey in his arms, her face drained of color, his whole body rigid with panic. The doctor spoke first. "Can you describe your symptoms?" Audrey didn't answer. Julian did, immediately, without thinking, like he'd been carrying the information in his bones. "Her cycles have always been irregular. She has a history of severe anemia and cramps, doesn't take care of herself, and nothing's worked, not supplements, not medication, nothing." I stood in that doorway and my feet wouldn't move. He could rattle off every detail of Audrey's health from memory. He couldn't even name what was wrong with my father. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. I told him to draft the annulment papers. Then I walked into the next room and sat down. "I need to schedule an abortion." The doctor's brows drew together the moment she saw me. "I remember you. You were glowing when you got the news a few weeks ago." "What changed?" My face went still. The bitterness rose so fast I could taste it. A month ago, while Julian was away on business, I'd started feeling off. The test came back positive. I didn't tell him. I was saving it. A wedding day surprise. I never got the chance. Audrey came back. He bolted from our ceremony and left me standing there, a punchline in a white dress. I was still in the gown. Every rustle of fabric reminded me. I finally woke up. "Please make the appointment," the doctor sighed. "All right. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., room 1. Just check in at the desk." I nodded and went back to my dad's room. I checked my phone. The group chat I shared with Julian's friends was blowing up. He'd added Audrey. "Welcome back, Audrey. I always knew you two would find your way back to each other. This is how it was always supposed to be. She's one of us. Clara's still in here, guys." The chat went dead. I could practically hear them cringing. They'd only ever tolerated me because of Julian. None of them had ever actually given a damn. A notification slid across my screen before I could even close the app. "Julian removed you from the group." The blood drained from my face. His message came right after. "I'll add you back in a few weeks. Just sit tight." I stared at it for 2 seconds and didn't reply. After tomorrow, none of this would matter. Dad woke up a couple of days later. By then, the procedure was over. I went back to Sterling Corp with my resignation letter ready to submit. I'd barely sat down at my desk when the elevator doors opened. Julian and Audrey stepped out together. He stopped in front of me. "How's your dad? Blood pressure under control?" My fists tightened under the desk. "Couldn't be better. Thanks for asking, Mr. Sterling." Julian's jaw tightened. He didn't like the edge in my voice. He was used to me being pleasant, compliant. He turned away from me, and the second his eyes found Audrey, his whole face changed, soft, warm, almost tender. "You'll start as the lead executive assistant to the CEO. Once you're up to speed, I'll move you into the project department." Audrey's eyes slid to me.
"Sure."
"I'm still new, so I don't really know how things work yet. Julian, just have Ms. Hayes show me the ropes." My head jerked up. I bit down on the fury before it could reach my mouth.
"No."
Audrey didn't even blink. She just waited, perfectly still, for Julian to handle it. And there it was. His voice landed like a fist. "You don't get to say no. This is an office, Clara, not a playground. Your feelings aren't part of the equation." He gave me one last look, flat, dismissive, and walked Audrey into his office. My hands went numb. The sky had been clear all morning, But now the rain had started up again, and a gust of cold air cut through the open window. I sank into my chair. Around me, the other secretaries laughed, low, cruel, not even trying to hide it. That afternoon, I'd just signed my resignation letter when Julian called me into his office. His face was dark. He threw a contract at my feet. "Tell me you didn't actually submit this, Clara. You put $300 million on a $30 million project. The entire team is scrambling to fix what you did." I picked it up. The number on the page hit me like ice water. That's not what I submitted. I'd checked that figure a dozen times. There was no way I'd gotten it wrong. My eyes drifted to Audrey, standing off to the side. She was smiling. Just barely, but enough. "It was you." That's why she'd been so eager to shadow me all morning. She'd been right next to me for hours. Getting my password would have been nothing. "Clara." Julian's voice cut through the room like a blade. His face was stone. "You're really going to stand there and blame this on someone else?" I breathed in, held it, forced my voice steady. "Then let's pull up the security footage." "And Ms. Miller?" She probably didn't know that the little desk ornament has a camera in it. Her face went still, just for a second, but I caught it. Julian pressed his mouth into a thin line. I saw him hesitate, and something in my chest dropped. Before he could say a word, I grabbed Audrey by the arm and hauled her out of the office. A crowd had already gathered outside. "Clara." Julian called after me, but I didn't stop. I pulled up the surveillance footage right there in front of everyone. Timestamp: 12:23 p.m. The office was empty. Audrey walked straight to my computer. The footage caught every move, her opening the file, changing the number, saving it. Julian's face went dark. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Wait, that's actually Audrey? Why would she do that?" "Come on, Audrey's his ex. This is the ex sabotaging the bride. The only question is whose side he picks." My money's on Audrey. You new people have no idea how intense those two were back in the day. My spine locked. I fought to keep my face neutral, fought not to look at Julian and read his silence for what it was. Then Audrey smiled at me. It came out of nowhere and my stomach dropped. She turned to Julian without a shred of guilt and said it like it was nothing. "I did it. I set her up. So fire me." She held his gaze, unflinching. "Go ahead, Julian. Fire me." I looked up. He had to fire her. The footage was right there. She'd confessed. There was no other way this could end. I held my breath and watched him, waiting. The silence stretched. Julian broke eye contact with Audrey first. "We're done here. Whatever fallout comes from this, I'll handle it personally." Audrey's smile widened. Her eyes found mine, and the triumph in them was suffocating. The room erupted around me. The humiliation hit so hard my vision blurred, and grief swallowed everything else. "Why?" My voice came out shaking, and I couldn't stop it. Julian looked at me like the answer was obvious. "She's with me. She made a bad call, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. That's what you do." A laugh ripped out of me before I could stop it. "With you." "Julian, we signed the papers. I'm legally your wife. She's the other woman. Clara." His voice dropped to ice. "Don't finish that sentence." I stared at the floor. Now I understood. Audrey could do anything she wanted because Julian would always cover for her. I was done fighting. "Fine. She's not." He cleared the room. Then he stepped closer, pulled me in, and when he spoke again, his voice was soft. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. I told you, Clara. Just give me a few weeks. That's all I'm asking. And then it's just us. I swear." My nails dug into my palms hard enough to sting. I smiled at him. "Okay. I believe you. Actually, there are a few contracts here that need your signature." I'd slipped my resignation letter and the annulment papers in with a stack. I handed him all of it. The pivot was smooth enough that he didn't catch it. He looked at me for a beat, searching, but my face gave him nothing. He relaxed. He signed without reading a single page. Back at my desk, I sent the signed annulment papers to my lawyer and dropped the resignation letter with HR. I waited out the rest of the day in silence. When the light turned gold through the windows, I took one last look at the office I'd spent 5 years in and left my badge on my chair. Audrey was waiting by my car in the parking garage. I would have walked right past her, but she spoke first.
See?
I told you. The second I came back, you were done. If you had any self-respect, you'd let him go yourself. Why cling to a man who doesn't love you? I stopped walking. When I turned, my voice was pure venom. Funny, because until those papers go through, you're still the side piece, Audrey. And everyone knows it. Her palm cracked across my face before I even saw it coming. You bitch. But Julian had just walked up behind us. And he saw everything. Audrey. His voice was quiet. His eyes stayed on my cheek, the mark still burning where she'd hit me. For a second, I thought he was going to say something. Then Julian opened his mouth. I'm sorry, Clara. That was out of line. I'll make it up to you. I'm already planning a bigger ceremony. Just give me a few weeks. Audrey's mouth curved. She slid her arm through his. Every part of me went rigid. My eyes burned. He walked away with her before I could say a word. The parking garage fell silent. I stood there, perfectly still, until the sting in my cheek faded to nothing. And then it finally settled in. Julian didn't care what Audrey had done to him. He knew she'd hit me, knew she'd framed me, knew exactly what kind of person she was. None of it mattered. He loved her. Audrey was right. I'd lost. Completely. The first time was years ago. She texted me out of nowhere, told me Julian kept her photo in his wallet and never let anyone touch it. I didn't believe her. Then I checked his wallet that night, and there it was. I threw it away. It was the first time Julian ever raised his voice at me. The second time was last year. Audrey told me Julian spent every single year with her mother on her birthday, without fail. That day was also my mom's birthday. I asked him, practically begged, to skip it just once and come home with me instead. Julian shook me off and left without a word. The third time was the wedding. He didn't even hesitate. And this, right here in this parking garage, was the fourth. I swallowed everything down and reached for the start button when my phone rang.
Mom.
She was sobbing so hard I almost couldn't understand her. Clara, your dad. The world tilted. I don't remember the drive. Just my hands shaking on the wheel and every red light lasting a lifetime. When I got there, it was already too late. My legs gave out. I dropped to my knees beside the bed and reached for his hand.
Dad.
The tears came before I could stop them, blinding and hot.
Dad.
What happened? He was fine yesterday. He was fine. How is this possible? Mom was next to me, barely standing, her whole body heaving with sobs. Some woman messaged him. Told him Julian had tossed you aside. Told him he should convince you to give up and walk away. My eyes squeezed shut.
Audrey.
Julian showed up looking stricken. I'm sorry, Clara. He pulled me against him, my whole body shaking. Audrey didn't mean to. She panicked. She wasn't thinking. I shoved him off me. My head was shaking. My eyes were wrecked, and when I spoke, the words barely made it out. Why did I ever love you, Julian? Get out. Get out. His expression darkened, and he let out a breath like it cost him everything. I'll make this right. The ceremony is already being planned. Just a few more weeks, and Audrey's gone. It'll be you and me.
For real this time.
Just take some time. He turned and walked out. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, something inside me had gone permanently cold. A few days later, Mom and I buried Dad. That afternoon, we bought 2 plane tickets and left the city for good. But before I left, I made one stop. I found the hotel manager Julian had booked for the wedding, transferred a massive bonus to his account, and gave him one instruction: deliver 3 gifts to Julian on the day of the ceremony. 3 surprises. The kind he'd remember for the rest of his life. Julian spent the next few weeks with Audrey, sightseeing, skipping work entirely. On the last evening, they stood wrapped around each other on Mount Rainier, the sky burning pink above them. Tomorrow's the deadline. So this is over, right? Julian went still. His arms tightened around her, but something dark and unreadable moved behind his eyes.
Yeah.
I promised, Clara. I can't go back on it again. Audrey didn't flinch. She wasn't worried. The ceremony was a formality, she knew that. Whenever she wanted Julian back, he'd come. Still, she let her eyes go glassy and forced a trembling lip.
Okay.
No matter what happens with Clara, I'll be right here. Always. Something in Julian's chest gave way. He pulled her closer. But under all of it, the same thought kept gnawing at him. Every call he'd made to Clara over the past few weeks, every text he'd sent, nothing. Not a single reply. The unease sat in his gut like something alive. He'd taken Audrey out of the city on purpose, to give Clara space, to stop making things worse. What had happened to her father? That was on both of them. He knew that. So he'd given her time. And he'd used that time to plan the ceremony she deserved. He released Audrey, pulled out his phone, and snapped a photo of the sky over the mountain. He sent it to Clara. Mount Rainier at sunset. I promise I'll bring you here for our honeymoon. You're the only one I love, Clara. He kept the chat open, staring at the screen, waiting for the typing bubble to appear. A minute passed. Nothing. His jaw clenched. Clara used to reply within seconds. Every time, without fail. The silence felt wrong. He told himself she was just angry. She loved him. She'd come around. The knot in his chest loosened.
Barely.
The wedding's tomorrow evening. I'll head straight to the venue. Your dress is already at the hotel. Still nothing from Clara. Julian let it go. Tomorrow was the big day. He'd make it all up to her then. He wrapped his arms around Audrey and let the quiet settle over them. The next morning, they flew back to Crestwood. He called the hotel manager to confirm the arrangements. The man's voice came back unsteady. Everything's ready, Mr. Sterling. All taken care of. Nothing to worry about. Julian exhaled and headed to the office. He stopped dead when he passed Clara's desk. Empty. Where's Clara? She's not in today. The secretaries exchanged glances. She hasn't been in for weeks. No one knows where she went. Maybe she took a leave of absence.
Right.
He'd told her to take some time. She must have requested leave. It couldn't be a resignation. That would have required his signature. The tension in his shoulders eased. He lingered at her empty desk for a moment, then went back to his office. He sat down and looked through the one-way glass at the outer office. He'd placed Clara's desk there himself, angled so he could glance up from his work and see her, focused and composed, whenever he needed to. Now the chair was empty. The hollowness caught him off guard. That night, the ceremony he'd planned for Clara came to life. He'd booked the most exclusive estate in Crestwood. The roses had been flown in from Switzerland. Her gown was handmade in Italy, custom-made by an elite team of designers, every stitch done by hand. He pictured Clara's face when she saw it all. The tears, the way she'd throw her arms around him, the forgiveness he thought he'd finally earn. Tonight's the night, Clara. I won't walk away this time. I promise. Night fell. Inside the banquet hall, the officiant was warming up the crowd from the stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our groom, Mr. Sterling, to the stage. The doors swung open. The hall was packed, every seat taken. Every face wore a polished smile, as if the disaster weeks ago had never happened. Julian took a deep breath and stepped forward, then stopped. His eyes moved over the crowd. Not a single person from Clara's family was there. Before he could process it, the officiant's voice rang out again. And now, please welcome our bride, Miss Hayes. The doors opened. Every head turned. The doorway was empty. Julian's blood went cold. Every unanswered text, every ignored call, all of it crashed into him at once. The officiant froze, then turned to Julian with wide eyes. Then the massive screen behind the stage crackled to life. The room exploded into chaos. Julian turned toward the screen. His mind was white noise. 2 documents filled the display, projected 10 feet tall for every guest to see, signed annulment papers and a medical report from an abortion clinic. Oh my God. Those are annulment papers. Julian and Clara? They actually signed them? What the hell is going on? If the marriage is already annulled, what was tonight supposed to be? Wait, there's an abortion report too. Look at the date. That's the day after he walked out on the first wedding. Holy shit. The crowd below buzzed with shock. On stage, Julian stood frozen, his eyes locked on the screen, reddening with every second. Annulled. When the hell did he sign annulment papers? How did he not know? And the baby. Clara had been pregnant. She never told him. Why would she? His vision tunneled. The floor swayed under him. Before he could steady himself, the screen crackled again. A video this time. Julian's breath stopped. Hospital surveillance footage, the ICU, and the woman in the bed was his grandmother. The grandmother who died 5 years ago. Below the stage, Audrey's face went white. She lunged forward, shoving through the crowd, scrambling onto the platform. Shut it off. Somebody shut it off. No one moved. The footage kept rolling. The timestamp showed it was recorded an hour before the official time of death. Audrey pushed open the ICU door, and her voice filled the banquet hall. You miserable old woman. You're on your deathbed, and you still had to use your last breath to try to keep Julian away from me?
Fine.
Then let me help you along. Julian watched, jaw slack, eyes burning, as the woman on the screen reached over and pulled the oxygen mask off his grandmother's face. She didn't put it back until the heart monitor flatlined. Then she walked out. The screen went black. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the sound of someone in the crowd choking back a sob. Audrey's mind was unraveling. She'd paid off the hospital security years ago to wipe every second of that footage. It should have been gone. How was it here? But that wasn't the worst part. She looked up at Julian, and the expression on his face made her entire body seize. She had never seen him like this. Julian, let me explain that video. It's not what it. His palm cracked across her face before she could finish. The sound echoed through the hall. Audrey hit the ground, screaming, her cheek already swelling. Tears streaked down her face. Julian. She scrambled to her knees and grabbed at his pant leg. I didn't mean to. I was scared. I panicked. You understand that, right? You've always understood. You forgave me for what happened to Clara's father. This isn't any different. Julian went still. She was right. He'd stood in front of Clara and told her to accept it, to understand. He closed his eyes, and the weight of what he'd done pressed down on him like something physical. He kicked her away, sending her sprawling. Get up. Real terror flooded Audrey's face for the first time. Julian's love was the only thing she'd ever had. His money, his protection, his blind devotion, all of it gone the second that footage played. Julian's chest heaved. His whole body was shaking. Call the police. Every drop of color left Audrey's face. Asterisk, Julian, you don't mean that. She scrambled to her feet. I didn't mean it. I can't go to prison. Julian, please. She bolted for the exit. Julian stood motionless, watching the bodyguards drag her back. And standing there, in that ruined hall, it finally hit him. Everything he'd done, and everything it had cost. This grand do-over ended worse than the first attempt. The guests filed out in silence. Julian walked to the bridal suite. The gown he'd had made for her, hand-stitched, flown in from Italy, had been shredded. Every seam ripped apart. He knew Clara had orchestrated all of it. And he knew she was already gone. Julian didn't remember leaving the estate. He walked into the apartment he hadn't seen in weeks and stopped in the doorway. Everything Clara had ever owned was gone. Not a single trace of her remained. The original annulment papers and the abortion report sat on the coffee table, perfectly centered, waiting for him. He sank onto the couch and stared at them. His face held nothing, just emptiness. He didn't move. Hours passed, darkness giving way to gray light through the windows, and still he sat there, eyes bloodshot, unblinking. He called Clara. Again and again and again. Every time, the same automated voice. The number you have reached is no longer in service.
She was gone.
And she didn't want to be found. A thought hit him. He called HR. Did Clara Hayes submit a resignation? Yes, sir. Weeks ago. You signed off on it yourself. Julian hung up. The contracts from that day, the stack she'd handed him with that calm, steady face, flooded back. He laughed. His whole body shook with it, but his eyes were burning. You were already gone, weren't you? Right there in front of me, and I didn't even see it. The tears hit the back of his hands before he realized he was crying. His fingers curled inward, and the truth settled into his bones. He'd lost her. The way she'd lost him a long time ago. The apartment was unbearable. Too quiet. Too empty. Clara had loved plushies. The apartment used to be full of them, scattered across every surface. She'd insisted on matching everything: towels, toothbrushes, slippers. His and hers. Julian had never been sentimental. Not once in his life. But he'd never stopped her. If anything, he'd let her do whatever she wanted, and somewhere along the way, he'd started to like it. His mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. 5 years. He'd been in love with her for 5 years and hadn't had the guts to admit it, not even to himself. What he'd felt for Audrey was never love. It was pride. Unfinished business. The refusal to accept that someone had walked away from him first. The apartment went dark around him. Julian sat with his head bowed, hollowed out, with nothing inside him left worth saving. The years blurred together. Seasons folded into each other until time was nothing but daylight and dark, one wave after another rolling in and pulling back out. Just like that, 5 years were gone. This holiday season marked exactly 5 years since I'd moved Mom to Los Angeles. I'd had no plan when I came here. No vision for what came next. All I knew was that I needed to get out of Crestwood before the grief buried me alive. I was never the person Julian made me into. I graduated from Hudson University with a finance degree. I could have done anything. Instead, I shrank myself down to fit beside him, content to play secretary as long as it meant being close. But then I met someone, and he helped me remember who I was. I was staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows, lost in thought, when I heard the door open behind me. Footsteps I'd know anywhere. Then his arms were around me, warm and solid. "What's going on? You okay?" I turned into his chest and held on.
Yeah.
"I'm just thinking about how lucky I am that I found you." He laughed softly. "I was going through my own loss back then, remember? We found each other at the exact right time, Clara. We saved each other." I pressed my face into his shoulder. "I want to go back for the holidays this year. Visit Dad. I haven't been back since we left. I spent so long running, but I don't need to anymore." He tightened his arms. "Then let's go. Wherever you need to be, I'm there." I closed my eyes and breathed him in, pine and warmth, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the universe owed me nothing. "What about Lily? I want to go too." The door burst open before I could finish. A tiny hurricane in a sundress came barreling across the office, and the bodyguard scrambled to shut the door behind her. She wedged herself between Silas Vance and me. "Mommy, you can't leave me behind. I want to see Grandpa too." I melted. "Okay, baby. We'll all go. Grandma too." The next day, we landed in Crestwood. After so long away, the city felt like it belonged to someone else. We went to the cemetery first. "Hey, Dad. I'm here. I know it took me too long, and I'm sorry. Years, you deserved better than that." Silas's hand found mine and squeezed. My throat tightened. "But I need you to know Mom's good. She's really good. And I found someone, Dad. Someone who actually loves me." I smiled through the sting in my eyes. "You have a granddaughter now." I took Lily Vance's hand. "Say hi to Grandpa, baby." She smoothed down her dress, completely serious, and waved at the headstone.
"Hi, Grandpa."
"I'm Lily." Silas stepped up beside me. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Silas. I just want you to know I've got them. Both of them. And I'm not going anywhere." My eyes blurred. I kept talking, scattered, rambling, pouring out years' worth of everything I'd never said. By the time I stopped, the sun was touching the horizon. I stood up, took Silas's hand and Lily's, and turned to leave. That's when I saw him. Julian had never believed he'd actually see her again. For years, he'd been coming to this cemetery. Her father's grave, the one he'd helped put him in. Guilt dragged him back, again and again. Every time, some part of him hoped she'd be there too. She never was. Years passed, and not a single trace. Julian hadn't slept a full night in years. Every time he closed his eyes, she was there, her face ruined, her voice torn raw, asking him the one question he could never answer. Why did I ever love you? And behind her, always, the ghost of the child they never had. The guilt didn't fade with time. It grew, tightening around him like something with roots, digging in deeper every year. Every sleepless night dragged him a little further down, and there was no bottom. The flowers slipped from Julian's hands and hit the ground. He stood there, staring, unable to move, unable to breathe. And then, for the first time in years, he said her name out loud. Not to a dream, not to an empty room. Clara. I went perfectly still. Memories I'd spent years burying clawed their way back to the surface.
He came toward me.
Silas stepped in front of me before Julian could get close, his expression hard as stone. Julian stopped. His eyes dropped to my hand in Silas's. Who are you? I'm Clara's husband. Back off. The word hit Julian like a physical blow. His face drained of color. Then his gaze dropped to Lily, and the resemblance to me was unmistakable. Is she yours? I touched Silas's arm. Take Lily to the car. I'll handle this. Silas didn't budge. I almost smiled. I stood on my toes and kissed his cheek.
Go.
I'll be fine. He lifted Lily onto his hip and started down the hill, glancing back over his shoulder every few steps. Julian watched every second of it, the touch, the kiss, the ease between us, and each one cut deeper than the last. The thought hit before he could stop it. So this was what Clara felt. Watching him with Audrey must have felt exactly like this. Clara. I slapped him, full force, across the face of the man I'd once loved more than anything. His head snapped sideways. When he turned back, his eyes were red. I steadied myself. That's what you owe me. And you have no right to be here, Julian. His fists clenched at his sides. I'm sorry. I never thought it would end up like this. I'm sorry, Clara. All of it. It was my fault. I stared at him, and years of buried rage rose like bile. You didn't know? You knew exactly what Audrey did to me. You watched her frame me, humiliate me, and you knew she was the reason my father was in the ground. And what did you do? I don't even hate Audrey the most, Julian. I hate you. You're the one I can't forgive. And some days, I wished it had been you in the ground instead of him. Each word landed like a blow. He swayed, his whole body buckling, like the ground was shifting under him. He couldn't argue. Every word was true. All he could do was stand there, head bowed, fists white-knuckled, whispering the same two words over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I exhaled. Don't come back here. My father doesn't want your guilt. Let him rest in peace. I turned to leave. Julian grabbed my wrist. Clara. His voice broke. Can we start over? The words hung in the air between us. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Then the absurdity of it hit, and I laughed, sharp and incredulous. What did you just say to me? Start over? I yanked my wrist free. God, Julian. You really haven't changed at all, have you? Still the same unbelievable arrogance. After everything you did, what makes you think you deserve a second chance? What makes you think I could ever look at you and not see every single thing you took from me? You think I'd walk away from my husband and my daughter for you? Every question landed. He flinched with each one. He had nothing. No answer. No defense. Just the same blind panic he'd felt years ago, watching her walk away. Nothing else mattered. If she walked away now, it was permanent. Julian sank to his knees. Right there on the cemetery path, in front of me, tears hitting the dirt. I haven't had a single night of peace, Clara. Not one. The guilt. It doesn't stop. It never stops. Please don't leave. I'm begging you. Please. He looked up at me, and the tears were streaming down his face, uncontrolled, undignified. Something shifted inside me. Looking at him on his knees, I saw myself. The version of me that used to beg just like this. I'd knelt the same way, at the altar, in our apartment, every time I asked him to choose me over Audrey. And what did he do? I pulled my hand free. Every word came out slow and deliberate.
No.
You did this to yourself. His eyes were drowning. I looked away. Stop this, Julian. Keep whatever dignity you have left. I turned around and walked away. I didn't look back. Not once. Just like he'd done to me at the altar all those years ago. He stayed on his knees, motionless except for the shaking in his shoulders. The sobs made no sound. And finally, kneeling in the dirt beside her father's grave, he understood. The only woman who had ever truly loved him was gone. I walked down the hill. Silas pulled me in and held me. Lily grabbed my hand and tugged. Let's go home, Mommy.
The end.
Don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Comment down below what you'd like to see next. See you in the next one.